The space station called Havoc Port floated at the edge of known space like a metal tumor. It was ugly, dangerous, and full of creatures who had run out of places to hide. Pirates docked here. Smugglers made deals in dark corners. The law had forgotten this place existed, and the people who lived here liked it that way. Park Do-wan guided his cargo ship through the docking clamps and felt the familiar shudder as the station grabbed hold. He sat in the pilot seat for a moment, staring at nothing. His ship was called the Silent Wake. It was old, beaten, and held together by patches and prayers, just like him. He was 34 years old, but his eyes looked older. There were scars on his hands and more hidden under his clothes. He had fought in the Earth-Krell border war 7 years ago. He had survived when better men died. Sometimes he wondered why. Now he hauled cargo, legal cargo mostly. He kept his head down, made enough money to keep flying, and tried not to think about the past. It was a simple life. Simple was good. He needed fuel and food, maybe a drink. Then he would leave this place and never come back. The station's interior was exactly what he expected. Dirty walls covered in strange alien writing, flickering lights that made shadows dance, the smell of machine oil and something rotten. Creatures of all shapes moved through the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs, some walked on 6, some floated. Nobody made eye contact. That was the first rule of places like this. Do-wan found a cantina near the fuel depot. It was a hole in the wall with metal tables bolted to the floor and a bar made from old ship parts. He ordered something brown that the bartender promised was alcohol. It burned going down. That was good enough. He sat in a corner where he could see both doors. Old habits. He watched the room without seeming to watch. A group of Krell pirates sat near the center, loud and drunk. They were big creatures, scaled skin the color of mud, small eyes that always looked angry. The Krell had been enemies of Earth once. Now they were just thugs and criminals, scattered across the galaxy after their empire fell. That was when Do-wan noticed the small alien. It sat alone at a table near the wall. It was tiny, barely reaching Do-wan's chest if it stood. Pale blue skin that looked almost transparent. Large dark eyes that took up half its face. Thin arms and thin legs and a body that looked like it might break in a strong wind. It wore simple gray clothes that hung loose on its frame. The creature was nursing a drink, making itself as small as possible, trying to be invisible. Do-wan recognized that posture. He had seen it in refugees, in prisoners, in people who had learned that being noticed meant being hurt. It was not working. 2 of the Krell pirates had spotted the small alien. They left their table and walked over, their boots heavy on the metal floor. The cantina got quieter. People looked away. Nobody wanted to see what was about to happen. "Little thing," one of the Krell said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "You are sitting in our territory. There is a fee for that." The small alien looked up. Its dark eyes were wide, frightened. "I am sorry, I did not know. I will leave." "Too late for that." The second Krell grabbed the alien's arm and yanked it up from the seat. The creature weighed nothing. It let out a small sound of pain. "Fee is everything you have. Empty your pockets." "I have nothing. Please, I am just passing through." The first Krell laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Then we take something else. Maybe we sell you. Small things like you. Some people pay good money. Use you for pets. Or worse." Do-wan took another drink. This was not his business. He had learned a long time ago that heroes died young and stupid. The galaxy was cruel. You could not save everyone. You should not even try. The Krell shoved the small alien to the ground. It hit the floor hard, curling up into a ball. The pirates laughed. Do-wan finished his drink. He stood up. Later, he would tell himself that he did not make a choice, that his body just moved on its own, that the war had put something in him that he could not control. But that was a lie, and he knew it. He walked across the cantina. His boots were quiet on the floor. The Krell did not notice him until he was already there. "Walk away," Do-wan said. The Krell turned. They were both taller than him, both heavier. They looked at this human with confusion, then amusement. "What did you say, soft skin?" "I said walk away, leave the little one alone." The first Krell stepped closer. His breath smelled like rotting meat. "You want to die for this worthless creature? It is nothing. It is weak. Why do you care?" Dowan did not answer. He had stopped asking himself that question years ago. The Krell swung at him. It was fast for something so big. But Dowan was faster. He had fought Krell before, in the war. He knew how they moved, where they were slow, where they were weak. He ducked under the swing and drove his fist into the soft spot beneath the Krell's arm. The alien gasped and stumbled. Dowan grabbed its arm and twisted. The joint popped. The Krell screamed. The second one came at him with a knife. Dowan moved sideways, caught the wrist, and broke it with a sharp motion. The knife clattered to the floor. He kicked the Krell's knee, and it went down hard. The other pirates at the center table were standing now. 5 more of them. They looked at their fallen friends, then at Dowan. He stared back at them. His eyes were flat and cold. The eyes of a man who had killed before and would do it again without hesitation. "Your friends will live," he said. His voice was calm. "You can carry them out of here, or you can try to fight me. Your choice." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the pirates picked up their wounded and left. They did not look back. The cantina slowly returned to normal. People went back to their drinks, their conversations, their deals. Just another night at Havoc Port. Dowan looked down at the small alien, still curled up on the floor. He offered his hand. "You okay?" The creature looked up at him. Those large dark eyes studied his face with an expression Dowan could not read. Then it took his hand and stood. Its grip was surprisingly gentle. "Yes, thank you." Its voice was soft, musical. "My name is Tavi." "Dowan, you should find a safer place to be." Tavi tilted its head. "There is no safe place for someone like me. I am alone. I have no ship, no money, no home." Dowan sighed. He knew what was coming. He should walk away right now. "Where are you trying to go?" "Anywhere. The next station. Somewhere away from here." Against every instinct, against all the hard lessons the galaxy had taught him, Dowan heard himself speak. "I am leaving tomorrow. I can take you to the next station. After that, you are on your own." Tavi smiled. It was a small, shy smile that made it look even more helpless. "Thank you. You're very kind." Dowan grunted and walked back to the bar. He needed another drink. He had just done something stupid, and he knew it. Behind him, Tavi watched him go. The smile faded, replaced by something else. Something ancient and calculating. Something that had worn masks for longer than human civilization had existed. This human was interesting. Very interesting indeed. The silent wake jumped into hyperspace with a groan of old engines. Stars stretched into lines of white light, and then there was nothing but the swirling blue tunnel of faster-than-light travel. The ship would reach the next station in 3 days. 3 days alone with his strange passenger. Dowan showed Tavi to the small guest cabin. It was barely more than a closet with a bed, but Tavi acted like it was a palace. "This is wonderful," Tavi said, touching the thin mattress with something like wonder. "I have not had a real bed in a long time. It is nothing special. The blanket is clean at least. It is perfect. Thank you." Dowan left the alien to settle in. He went to the cockpit and ran through his usual checks. Fuel levels, engine status, life support. Everything was working more or less. The ship was old but reliable, like a faithful dog that refused to die. He tried to focus on his work, but his mind kept wandering back to what he had done. Taking in a stranger was dangerous. Space was full of tricks and traps. The small alien could be anything. A spy, a thief, a creature wearing an innocent face to hide something ugly underneath. But when Dowan looked at Tavi, he saw only weakness, only vulnerability, only someone who needed help. He was probably a fool, but he had been a fool before and survived. Over the next 2 days, Tavi was the perfect guest. Quiet, polite, grateful for everything. The alien ate little and asked for nothing. It spent most of its time sitting in the common area, looking out the small window at the blue swirl of hyperspace. But it asked questions. So many questions. "Where are you from?" Tavi asked one evening as they shared a simple meal of protein bars and dried fruit. "Earth, a city called Busan, near the ocean." "What is the ocean like?" Dowan paused, a piece of fruit halfway to his mouth. Nobody had asked him about home in years. "Big, blue. It smells like salt. When I was young, I would swim in it. The waves would knock you down if you were not careful. That sounds beautiful. It was. Dewan ate the fruit and said nothing more. But he noticed that Tavi was watching him with those large dark eyes, drinking in every word like water. Why did you leave Earth? Tavi asked the next day. The war. I was a pilot. After it ended, I could not go back. Too many ghosts. Ghosts? Memories. People I lost. Things I did. Dewan stared at his hands. The scars there told stories he never spoke aloud. Some places become too heavy. You have to leave or they crush you. Tavi nodded slowly. I understand this. I have left many places for the same reason. You? You do not look old enough to have many places? Something flickered in Tavi's eyes. Just for a moment. Then it was gone, replaced by that innocent, helpless expression. Looks can be deceiving, Tavi said softly. Dewan noticed other things too, small things that did not fit. Tavi moved carefully, slowly, like someone who was afraid of breaking something. But sometimes when the alien thought Dewan was not watching, its movements became fluid and precise, like a dancer, like a predator pretending to be prey. Tavi claimed to be weak, but it never seemed tired. It slept little and was always awake before Dewan, no matter how early he rose. And those eyes, those large dark eyes that seemed to see too much. When Tavi looked at Dewan, it felt like being studied, measured, understood in ways that should not be possible. One night, Dewan woke from a nightmare, the same nightmare he always had, fire and screaming and the faces of dead friends. He sat up in his bed covered in sweat, his heart pounding. Tavi was standing in the doorway. I heard you cry out, the alien said. Are you well? Fine, just a dream. Go back to sleep. But Tavi did not move. You dream of the war. It was not a question. Yes, you carry much pain inside you. I can feel it. Dewan looked at the small creature. Feel it? What does that mean? My people are sensitive to emotions. We can sense what others feel. Your pain is very loud, Dewan, like a fire that never stops burning. Is that why you look at me the way you do? Because you can feel what I feel? Tavi was quiet for a moment. Partly, but also because you confuse me. Confuse you how? You carry so much pain. You have lost so much. You have every reason to be hard and cold, to care only for yourself. Tavi stepped closer, its voice soft. But in that cantina, you risked your life for a stranger, a weak, worthless stranger who could offer you nothing. Why? Dewan did not have a good answer. He had asked himself the same question many times. I do not know, he said finally. It felt wrong to do nothing. That is all? That is all, Tavi repeated. The alien seemed to be thinking about this, turning it over in its mind like a puzzle. Your people are strange, Dewan. Very strange. Humans? Yes. I have met many species in my travels. Most of them are predictable. They act from self-interest. They help others only when they expect something in return. But humans, Tavi shook its head. Humans do things that make no sense. They sacrifice themselves for strangers. They fight battles they cannot win. They love things that cannot love them back. Maybe we are just stupid. No, not stupid. Something else. Something I do not have a word for. Tavi moved to leave, then paused at the door. Thank you for helping me, Dewan. I know it cost you nothing material, but it cost you something. The risk, the choice to care. That is not nothing. After Tavi left, Dewan lay awake for a long time. The alien was right. Helping strangers did cost something. It cost comfort. It cost safety. Sometimes it cost everything. But he had made the choice anyway, just like he always did, just like he could not stop himself from doing. Maybe that was what Tavi meant by something else. That strange human impulse to reach out when pulling back would be easier, to fight when running would be smarter, to hope when despair made more sense. He did not know if it was a strength or a weakness. Maybe it was both. In the guest cabin, Tavi sat in the darkness. It did not need light to see. It did not need sleep to rest. These were parts of its disguise, small performances to appear helpless and ordinary. The creature that called itself Tavi had worn many masks over the centuries. It had pretended to be weak so many times that sometimes it almost forgot what strength felt like. But tonight, watching the human sleep, feeling the complex storm of his emotions, Tavi remembered. It remembered power that could shatter worlds. It remembered wars that burned across galaxies. It remembered being feared by every living thing in the universe. And it remembered why it had given all that up. Tavi opened a small device hidden in its clothing, a recording device that used technology far beyond anything humans had invented. It spoke quietly in a language that had not been heard aloud in 3,000 years. Day 3 of observation. Subject continues to display the markers: protective instincts toward unknown individuals, willingness to accept personal risk for no material gain, complex emotional responses, including guilt, compassion, and something the ancient texts called honor. Tavi paused, thinking. The old records described the kindred as the only species worthy of the Vane's respect. They said the kindred would fight for those who could not fight for themselves, even unto death. They said this made them beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Another pause. I am beginning to believe the records were accurate. This human, Do Wan, displays every characteristic. He does not know what he is. He thinks he is ordinary. He thinks his actions are small. Tavi looked toward the wall that separated it from the human's cabin. He has no idea how extraordinary he truly is, and I find myself wanting to protect that innocence. Which is strange. I have not wanted to protect anything in a very long time. The recording ended. Tavi sat in the darkness, thinking about ancient wars and lost friends, and a species that had vanished from the universe 10,000 years ago. The kindred were gone. Everyone knew that. But perhaps, just perhaps, they had come back wearing different faces. Tomorrow they would reach the station. Tavi would have to decide whether to leave or stay. For the first time in centuries, it did not know what choice to make. The silent wake dropped out of hyperspace near a small moon called Kestis 7. It was a refueling stop, nothing more. A few storage tanks, a landing pad, and a single building where travelers could buy supplies. The kind of place that existed only because space was big and ships needed fuel. Dewan guided the ship down through thin atmosphere. The moon's surface was gray and rocky, scarred with craters. No life, no beauty, just another dead rock in an endless void. We will stop here for an hour, he told Tavi. Get fuel, check the engines, then continue to the station. I will stay with the ship, Tavi said. The alien seemed nervous, looking out the window at the empty landscape. That is probably smart. These remote places can be dangerous. They landed on the pad with a soft thump. Dewan shut down the engines and ran through his post-flight checks. Everything looked normal. The fuel depot was 100 meters away, a squat building with pipes running into the ground. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the airlock. Dewan, Tavi's voice stopped him. Be careful. There was something in the alien's tone, a warning perhaps, or a fear. Dewan looked back at those large dark eyes and felt a strange chill. I always am. He stepped outside. The air was thin but breathable, cold enough to make his breath visible. His boots crunched on loose gravel as he walked toward the depot. He made it halfway before he saw them. Ships. 3 of them, hidden behind a rocky outcrop. Krell ships, ugly and angular, their hulls covered in crude paint and stolen parts. Pirate ships. Doan stopped walking. Figures emerged from behind rocks, from inside the depot building, from everywhere. Krell warriors armed with rifles and blades, 15 of them at least, forming a circle around him. And in the center, one he recognized, the scarred brute from Havoc Port, the one whose arm Dowan had broken. Human, the Krell said. His arm was in a crude splint, but his eyes burned with hate. Did you think you could humiliate me and escape? Did you think I would not find you? Dowan said nothing. His mind was racing, calculating angles and distances. 15 armed enemies. No cover. His pistol was on his hip, but he would be dead before he drew it. My name is Gorath, the Krell continued. I am the leader of the Bloodfang clan. You made me look weak in front of my men. For that, you will suffer. Your men lost to one human. Maybe they needed to see that. Gorath's face twisted with rage. Brave words. Let us see how brave you are when we take our time with you. And after we finish with you, we will take your ship and the little creature inside. Tavi. They wanted Tavi too. Something changed in Dewan's eyes. The cold calculation gave way to something hotter, something more dangerous. The creature is not part of this, he said. This is between you and me. No, you made it my business when you protected it. Now it dies with you. Dewan looked at the circle of enemies around him. 15 Krell, all armed, all wanting him dead. He should surrender. Try to talk his way out. Buy time and hope for a miracle. Instead, he did something they did not expect. He attacked. His pistol was in his hand before they could react. 2 shots, 2 Krell down. Then he was moving, sprinting toward the nearest enemy, while the others were still processing what had happened. The Krell were big and strong, but they were not soldiers. They were raiders, bullies who won through numbers and cruelty. They had never faced someone like Dewan. He fought like water, flowing around their clumsy attacks. He fought like fire, striking fast and burning hot. Every movement was efficient, learned through years of training and war. A Krell swung a blade at his head. He ducked, stepped inside the creature's reach, and drove his elbow into its throat. It went down choking. Another came at him with a rifle. He grabbed the barrel, twisted, and used the Krell's own momentum to throw it into 2 of its friends. They shot at him. He felt a bullet graze his arm. Another hit his shoulder. Pain flared, hot and sharp. He kept moving. Pain was just information. It could be ignored. He was everywhere and nowhere. He used the Krell against each other, made them block their own shots, tangled them up in their own numbers. One by one they fell, but there were too many. A blow from behind sent him stumbling. Before he could recover, 3 Krell tackled him to the ground. They pinned his arms, his legs. One of them started hitting him, over and over. His vision blurred. He tasted blood. Gorth walked over slowly, savoring the moment. You fight well, human. Better than I expected. But it does not matter. You are one. We are many. That is how the universe works. Dewan spat blood onto the gray rocks. Go to hell. I will send you there first. Gorth pulled out a long knife. The blade curved and cruel. He pressed it against the Dewan's throat. Any last words? Dewan looked past him toward the ship, toward Tavi, who was probably watching through the window, helpless and afraid. Run, he whispered. Please run. Gorath laughed. The creature cannot hear you. And even if it could, where would it go? This moon is death. There is nowhere to run. He raised the knife, and then everything changed. The Krell holding Dewan suddenly screamed. He twisted around to see one of them clutching his head, blood pouring from his eyes. Another fell, twitching and foaming at the mouth. A third simply stopped moving, his body going limp like a puppet with cut strings. Gorth spun around, knife forgotten. What is happening? What is this? Tavi stood at the bottom of the ship's ramp, but it was not the same Tavi. The frightened, helpless creature was gone. In its place stood something else, something old and terrible and powerful beyond measure. The alien's large dark eyes glowed with faint blue light. Its thin body seemed larger somehow, filled with a presence that had been hidden before. When it spoke, its voice was different, deeper, echoing, like many voices speaking at once. You will not touch him. Gorth aimed his rifle at Tavi and pulled the trigger. The bullet stopped in midair, inches from the alien's face. It hung there for a moment, then dropped harmlessly to the ground. What are you? Gorth whispered. For the first time there was fear in his voice. I am what your ancestors told stories about. I am what your nightmares forgot. I am Vayne. 2 more Krell fell, their hearts stopping inside their chests. Another clawed at his own throat as his lungs refused to work. Gorth ran. The remaining Krell scattered, abandoning their weapons, their wounded, everything. They fled to their ships like animals fleeing a forest fire. Within minutes, the pirate ships were gone, disappearing into the sky, running from something they could not understand. Dewan lay on the ground, bleeding from a dozen wounds. The world was spinning, darkness creeping at the edges of his vision. Tavi walked to him and knelt down. The glow faded from its eyes. The terrible presence retreated. It was just a small, pale alien again. You could have died, Tavi said softly. Maybe. Dowan coughed blood. But you would have died first. I thought you were helpless. Tavi placed a hand on his chest. Warmth spread through his body, pushing back the pain, closing wounds that should have killed him. I know, Tavi said, and there was something in its voice. Guilt, perhaps, or sorrow. That is what makes you special, Dowan. You fought an impossible battle for something you thought was weak. You were willing to die for a stranger who could give you nothing. Who are you? Dowan asked. His voice was weak, fading. What are you? Tavi looked at him with those ancient eyes. I will tell you everything, but first you need to rest. Sleep now. I will keep you safe. Dowan tried to argue, tried to stay awake, but the healing warmth was too strong. His eyes closed. The last thing he heard was Tavi's voice, soft as a whisper. Sleep. Kindred, you have earned it. Dowan woke slowly, like rising from deep water. His body felt strange, light. The constant ache of old wounds and new injuries was gone. He opened his eyes and saw the familiar ceiling of his ship's medical bay. He remembered the fight, the bullets, the beating. He should be dead or dying. Instead, he felt better than he had in years. He sat up and looked at his hands. The scars were still there, but the fresh wounds from the battle had vanished. His shoulder, which had taken a bullet, showed smooth skin without even a mark. Tavi sat in the corner, watching him. How long was I asleep? 12 hours. Your body needed time to accept the healing. Dowan swung his legs off the medical bed. His muscles felt strong, responsive. He stood without effort. What did you do to me? I healed you. Accelerated your cellular regeneration, repaired damaged tissue, cleaned toxins from your blood. Tavi's voice was calm, matter of fact, like it was discussing something ordinary. That is not possible. No medical technology can do that. Human medical technology cannot. Tavi tilted its head. I am not human. Dowan stared at the small alien. The same pale blue skin, the same large dark eyes. But now he saw something different behind those eyes. Something vast and deep, like looking into an ocean that had no bottom. What are you? Tavi was quiet for a long moment. Then it stood and walked to the medical bay's small window. Stars drifted past, cold and distant. I told you my people are called the Vain, but I did not tell you what that means. Tavi turned back to face him. We are empaths. We feel what others feel. But that is only the smallest part of our ability. The pirates. You killed them without touching them. Yes, the Vain can manipulate biological matter at the molecular level. We can sense every cell in a living body. We can heal. Tavi's voice dropped. And we can destroy. We can stop hearts with a thought, boil blood in the veins, erase the pathways of the brain until there is nothing left. Dowan felt cold despite the warmth of the ship. You could have killed me anytime you wanted. Yes, I have killed more beings than I can count. Millions, perhaps billions. Over 12,000 years of existence, I have ended lives in ways you cannot imagine. 12,000 years. The number hung in the air like smoke. That is impossible. For humans, yes. The Vain do not age as you do. We change slowly, over centuries. I was ancient when your ancestors were learning to make fire. Dowan sat back down on the medical bed. His legs suddenly felt weak, not from injury, but from the weight of what he was hearing. If you are so powerful, why pretend to be weak? Why act helpless? Tavi returned to its seat in the corner. It suddenly looked tired. Not physically tired, but weary in a way that went deeper than flesh. Because power is a curse, Dowan. The Vain learned this long ago. The alien closed its eyes. Let me tell you the history they do not teach in any school. The history that was erased from every record. Dowan listened. 10,000 years ago, the Vain ruled this galaxy. Not through politics or armies, but through fear. Every species knew what we could do. Every empire trembled at our existence. Wars ended when we appeared. Civilizations surrendered rather than face us. You were conquerors. No, we never wanted to rule. We simply existed, and our existence shaped everything around us. We were like a sun. Everything orbited us. Everything feared our heat. Tavi opened its eyes. We thought we were keeping peace. We thought our power served a purpose. We were wrong. What happened? We broke the galaxy, not through war, but through our mere presence. Species stopped developing, stopped growing, stopped believing they could solve their own problems. Why try when the van could do it for them? Why fight when the van could end any conflict with a thought? We became a crutch, and crutches make legs weak. Tavi stood and walked toward Dowan. Its movements were slow, deliberate. So we made a choice. The Elder Council, of which I was a member, decided that the vein must disappear. We scattered across the galaxy, disguised ourselves as weak and ordinary, and let the universe forget we existed. You have been hiding for 10,000 years? Yes, watching, waiting, making sure no threat arises that requires our intervention. Tavi stopped in front of Dowan, and looking for something we lost, something we have searched for since before we went into hiding. What? The kindred. The word meant nothing to Dowan, but Tavi said it with such weight, such reverence, that he knew it mattered. Before we retreated, there was one species the Ven respected. One species we considered equals. They were not powerful like us. They could not kill with thoughts or heal with touch. But they had something we did not. Something we could not understand. What did they have? You. Tavi reached out and touched Dowan's chest, right over his heart. They had what you have. The kindred would fight for strangers. They would protect the weak even when it cost them everything. They would die for principles that seem foolish to every other species in the galaxy. Dowan shook his head. I am just a man. I am nobody special. That is what the kindred always said. They never understood what made them extraordinary. Tavi's eyes were bright now, filled with emotion that had been hidden for millennia. The kindred went extinct 5,000 years before we went into hiding. A war against an empire that no longer exists. They fought until the last one fell, protecting refugees who were not even their own species. That is sad. But what does it have to do with me? Everything, Dowan, because when humanity made first contact with the galaxy 200 years ago, the remaining Van noticed something remarkable. Tavi's voice dropped to a whisper. Humans display every characteristic of the kindred, the same irrational courage, the same protective instincts, the same willingness to suffer for principles. You think humans are these kindred reborn? I did not know. I have been studying humanity for 2 centuries, searching for confirmation, and then I met you. Tavi's hand pressed harder against his chest. In that cantina, you proved everything. You risked your life for someone you thought was worthless. Not for reward, not for recognition, simply because it felt wrong to do nothing. Dowan pulled away. This was too much. He was a cargo hauler with bad dreams and old scars. He was nobody's chosen one, nobody's proof of anything. You are wrong about me. I am not special. I have done terrible things. In the war, I killed people. I made choices that haunt me every night. The kindred killed too. They were warriors, fierce and terrible in battle. But they fought for protection, not conquest. They carried their guilt because they cared enough to feel it. Tavi's voice was gentle now. You think your pain makes you unworthy, but that pain is what proves you are exactly what I have been searching for. Dowan turned away. He walked to the window and stared at the stars. Somewhere out there, other ships flew, other lives continued, other people made choices big and small. None of them knew that an ancient being had just told a broken cargo hauler that he represented something cosmic. Why tell me this? He asked without turning around. Why not keep pretending to be weak? Because the pirates will tell others. The vein have been revealed. Word will spread. And there are those who have been waiting for this moment. Tavi's voice hardened. There are those who hunt the van, who want our power for themselves. They will come for me now. And because you are with me, they will come for you too. Then I should leave, put you somewhere safe and fly away. You could do that, yes. Dowan turned back. Tavi was watching him with those ancient eyes waiting. But you will not, the alien said, because that is not who you are. The kindred never ran from danger. They ran toward it. Dowan wanted to argue. He wanted to say that Tavi was wrong, that he was just a coward who hauled cargo and avoided trouble. But he knew that was a lie. "What do we do now?" he asked. Tavi smiled. It was not the shy, helpless smile from before. It was older and sadder and somehow more real. "Now we go to my people. The remaining Vane have been hiding in a sanctuary for thousands of years. They need to know what I have found. They need to meet you. And then? And then we prepare, because the hunters are coming, and this time, the Vane will not face them alone." Dewan looked at the small alien standing in his medical bay, a creature older than human civilization, a being that could kill with a thought, and it was looking at him like he was the answer to an ancient prayer. "I am just a man," he said again. "Yes," Tavi agreed. "And that is exactly what makes you dangerous." The silent wake traveled for 3 days through regions of space that appeared on no map. Tavi guided Dowan through hidden routes, past dead stars, and through clouds of cosmic dust that blocked all sensors. These paths had been secret for 10,000 years, known only to the Ven. During the journey, Tavi told stories. Stories about the galaxy before humans existed. Stories about the Vane and the kindred and the wars that shaped everything. Dewan listened. "The kindred were not a single species," Tavi explained one evening as they sat in the common area. "They were many species, united by a common trait. Different bodies, different worlds, different languages, but they all shared the same soul." "What do you mean, the same soul?" "I mean they all displayed the same impossible behavior. They protected those who could not protect themselves. Not because it was logical, not because they expected reward, but because they could not do otherwise. It was built into them, like breathing." Dewan shook his head. "That sounds like a weakness. In a dangerous universe, caring about others gets you killed." "Yes, it does." Tavi's voice was sad. "The kindred died out because of their nature. They kept fighting when retreat would have saved them. They kept protecting when abandonment would have been safer. Their compassion was their destruction." "Then why do you call them equals? Why respect a species that destroyed itself through kindness?" Tavi was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke, its voice was different, softer, more vulnerable. "Because the Vane destroyed ourselves through cruelty. We killed and dominated and controlled until there was nothing left worth controlling. The kindred built civilizations that loved them. The Vane built civilizations that feared us." The alien looked at its thin hands. "We have power that could reshape stars, and we used it to make everyone afraid." "But you stopped. You went into hiding." "Yes, because we finally understood what the kindred always knew. Power without purpose is poison. Strength without compassion is emptiness." Tavi looked up at Dowan. "The kindred died protecting others. We almost died from the loneliness of being feared by everyone. Tell me, which death seems better to you?" Dowan did not answer. He did not need to. On the second day, Tavi showed him recordings. Ancient files stored in technology that made human computers look like children's toys. The recordings showed the kindred in their final days. Dewan watched a battle. Thousands of kindred warriors, species of all shapes and sizes, fighting against an army that outnumbered them 100 to 1. Behind them, millions of refugees fled toward escape ships. The kindred could have left with them. They could have saved themselves. They stayed. He watched them fall one by one, holding the line so that others could escape. He watched their communication channels, heard their final messages. Not fear, not despair. Just calm determination and words of encouragement to each other. "Hold the left flank. We need 10 more minutes. I am out of ammunition, going to hand combat. Tell my family I love them. Tell them I did what was right." The last kindred warrior died with a blade in his hand and a smile on his face. He had bought enough time. The refugees escaped. Dewan turned away from the recording. His eyes were wet. "Why show me this?" "Because you need to understand. The kindred were not saints. They were warriors. They killed enemies. They felt fear and doubt and anger. But when the moment came, when the choice was between saving themselves and saving others, they always chose others. And you think humans are like them. I know humans are like them." Tavi pulled up another file. "This is from your own history. A battle called Thermopylae." Dowan knew the story. 300 Spartans holding a pass against thousands, dying to buy time for others to escape. And this one, A ship called the Titanic. Men giving up their seats on lifeboats so women and children could live. And this one, a place called Chernobyl. Workers walking into radiation to prevent a greater disaster, knowing they would die, doing it anyway. Your species has done this over and over, throughout your entire history. You sacrifice for strangers. You fight impossible battles. You die for principles. Tavi's voice cracked with emotion. Do you understand now? Do you see why I have spent 200 years searching? The kindred live again, Dowan. They live in you. Dowan stood and walked to the window. Stars drifted past, eternal and uncaring. You are putting too much faith in one species, he said. Humans have also done terrible things. Wars, genocides, cruelty beyond imagination. Yes, the kindred had darkness too. Every species does. But the darkness does not erase the light. Both exist together. That is what makes the choice meaningful. Tavi joined him at the window. Anyone can be cruel. It is easy to hurt, to take, to destroy. But choosing compassion when cruelty is easier, that is rare. That is what defines the kindred. That is what defines humans. They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. What happened to the vein? Dowan asked finally. After you went into hiding? We watched, we waited. We grew old and tired. Tavi's reflection in the window looked ancient, hollow. There are only a few dozen of us left now. The youngest is 4,000 years old. The oldest is nearly 20,000. We have forgotten how to live. We only know how to survive. That sounds lonely. It is. More than you can imagine. Tavi turned to face him. That is why you matter so much. Not just you, but all of humanity. You are hope, Dowan. Hope that the kindred spirit did not die. Hope that the galaxy can produce something worth protecting. On the third day they arrived. The sanctuary was hidden inside a nebula, a swirling cloud of gas and dust that glowed purple and gold. The colors were beautiful, otherworldly, like a painting made of light. No sensors can penetrate the nebula, Tavi explained, and the radiation confuses navigation systems. Only the vain know the path through. The silent wake followed Tavi's directions, weaving through dense clouds and past spinning debris. And then, suddenly, they were through. The station floated in a pocket of clear space at the nebula's heart. It was enormous, larger than any structure Dowan had ever seen. Spires and domes and platforms, all connected by bridges of light. It looked like a city frozen in time, preserved in the void like an insect in amber. This is where we have hidden for 10,000 years, Tavi said. This is the last home of the vain. Dowan stared at the ancient structure. Somewhere in there, creatures older than human history waited. Creatures who had once ruled the galaxy. Creatures who had retreated from that power in chosen obscurity. What will they think of me? He asked. Tavi smiled. They will think you are impossible. They will think you are a miracle. And some of them will be afraid of what your existence means. Afraid? Why would ancient gods fear a single human? Tavi turned to him with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Because you represent change, Dowan, and the vain have not changed in 10,000 years. Change is terrifying when you have forgotten how to do it. The ship docked at a platform extending from the station. Dowan took a deep breath. He was about to meet the oldest beings in the galaxy, beings who could kill him with a thought, beings who had been waiting since before his species existed. He was just a cargo hauler from Earth, a man with scars and nightmares and nothing special about him at all. And apparently that was exactly what made him important. Let us go, Tavi said. It is time for the vain to meet their kindred. The interior of the vain sanctuary was like walking through a dream. Corridors of crystal that hummed with soft light. Gardens where plants from 1,000 dead worlds still grew. Rooms filled with art and artifacts from civilizations that had been dust for millennia. And the Van themselves, they emerged from doorways and halls to see the newcomers. Dowan counted 37 of them. They were all similar to Tavi, small and pale with large dark eyes, but each was different in subtle ways. Some had skin that shimmered like pearl. Others had eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. All of them moved with that strange combination of grace and weariness that Dejuan had learned to recognize. Ancient. They were all unimaginably ancient. They gathered in a great hall at the center of the station. The ceiling was transparent, showing the swirling colors of the nebula above. Seats were arranged in a circle, and the Vane took their places, watching as Tavi led Dowan to the center. An elder Vane spoke first. Its voice was dry like old paper but strong. Tavi, you have returned after 300 years, and you have brought an outsider to our sanctuary. I have brought proof, Elder Suho. Tavi's voice was steady. This human is called Park Dowan. He saved my life without knowing what I was. He fought impossible odds to protect someone he believed was weak and helpless. Murmurs rippled through the gathered Vane. Some leaned forward with interest. Others drew back in suspicion. The Cantina incident, another elder said. This one was called Miran, and her eyes were silver with age. We heard the reports. A single human defeating Krell pirates with his bare hands. And the ambush on Kestis 7, Tavi added. He fought 15 armed enemies. He was dying when I revealed myself. He told me to run, to save myself. Even as he bled out, he thought only of protecting me. Elder Suho studied Dowan with eyes that had seen the birth of stars. You are the first outsider to enter this sanctuary in 9,000 years, human. Tell me, do you understand what you have done? What you represent? Dowan met the ancient being's gaze. Tavi tells me I represent something called the kindred. I do not understand it. I do not believe I am special. I am just a man who made choices that felt right. That is exactly what the kindred always said, Moran whispered. They never understood themselves either. Another Vane spoke up. This one was younger, though younger for the Vane still meant thousands of years. His name was Jinho, and his voice was sharp with suspicion. One human proves nothing. Their species has existed for barely 200,000 years. How can they be compared to the kindred? One human is all it takes, Tavi answered. The kindred were rare, even among themselves. Most beings in the galaxy would have walked past that cantina and done nothing. Most beings would have surrendered to the pirates on Kestis 7. But Dowan fought. He was willing to die. So he is brave. Bravery is common. Not this kind of bravery. Tavi stepped forward, passion entering her voice for the first time. Jinho, you have lived for 7,000 years. In all that time, have you ever risked your life for a stranger? Have you ever fought a battle you knew you could not win, just because it was right? Jinho was silent. None of us have, Tavi continued. We have hidden. We have watched. We have survived. But we have not lived. We have forgotten what it means to care about something more than our own existence. She gestured toward Dowan. He has not forgotten. His species has not forgotten. They carry the spark that we lost. The debate continued. Some Vane believed Tavi. Others doubted. They argued about ancient texts and old prophecies and what it all meant. Dowan stood in the center of it all, feeling out of place. These beings could crush him with a thought. They were discussing his species like scientists discussing an interesting specimen, but he did not feel fear. He felt something else. Sadness, perhaps. These ancient creatures were so tired, so lost. They had power beyond imagination, but they had forgotten why power mattered. The debate was interrupted by an alarm. It was a low, pulsing sound that made the crystal walls vibrate. The Vane fell silent, their ancient faces showing surprise for the first time. Elder Suho rose from his seat. The outer sensors. Something is approaching. Impossible, Jinho said. No one can find this sanctuary. The path is secret. The pirates, Tavi said, her voice cold. They saw me use my abilities. They would have told others, sold the information. They moved to a viewing platform where holographic displays showed the space outside the nebula. What Dowan saw made his blood freeze. Ships, hundreds of them, surrounding the nebula like wolves circling prey. They were black and angular, their hulls covered in symbols he did not recognize. Warships, a fleet large enough to conquer worlds. The Dominion of Ash, Elder Miran whispered. The name was spoken like a curse. Tavi turned to Dowan. Survivors of an empire we destroyed 8,000 years ago. They have spent millennia hunting us, seeking revenge. They want to capture the vein, to study us, to steal our abilities. How did they find this place? It does not matter now. They are here. A communication signal cut through the displays. A face appeared, human features twisted into something cruel. A woman with short dark hair and eyes like empty wells. "I am Admiral Yun Hana of the Dominion of Ash," she said. Her voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "I address the vein directly. You have hidden long enough. Your time is over." Elder Suho stepped forward. "How did you find us?" "Your little display on Kestis 7. The pirate clan sold the information to everyone willing to pay. We paid more than anyone." Admiral Yoon smiled. "I must thank the human cargo hauler for drawing you out. His foolish heroism exposed what thousands of years of searching could not." Dowan felt the words like a knife. His actions had led them here. His choice to protect Tavi had doomed them all. "You cannot enter the nebula," Tavi said. "The radiation will destroy your ships." "Perhaps, but we do not need to enter. We have weapons that can reach through the clouds. Weapons designed specifically for this moment." Admiral Yoon's smile widened. "Surrender the vein, all of them, and I will let the human go. That is my only offer." The transmission ended. Silence fell over the viewing platform. The vein looked at each other, and Dowan saw something he had not expected. Resignation, acceptance. "It is over," Elder Suho said quietly. "We have lived too long. Perhaps this is meant to be." "You cannot be serious," Dowan said. "You are the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Fight back." "Fight back?" Jinho laughed bitterly. "We abandoned fighting 8,000 years ago. We do not remember how. Then learn again." Dowan walked to the center of the platform. He looked at each vein in turn, these ancient, weary creatures who had given up on everything. "I have heard your history. You ruled the galaxy through fear. You made everyone afraid of you. And when you realized that was wrong, you hid. You ran away from what you were." His voice grew stronger. "But hiding is just another kind of fear. Fear of your own power, fear of making mistakes again." "You do not understand," Moran said. "Our power destroyed everything. We do not dare use it. Then do not use it to destroy. Use it to protect." Dowan pointed at the holographic fleet. "Those ships are here to capture you, to enslave you, to make you weapons again, but for their purposes. Is that what you want? To spend eternity serving the Dominion?" The vein shifted uncomfortably. "The kindred you speak of, they died fighting. They died protecting refugees they had never met. They chose death over surrender." Dowan's voice echoed through the hall. "What do you choose? To die hiding or to die standing?" Elder Suho stared at him. "You ask us to become what we swore never to be again. No, I ask you to become something new. Not conquerors, not destroyers, protectors." Dowan drew his pistol, the same weapon that had saved Tavi in the cantina. "I am one human with one gun. I cannot defeat that fleet, but I will fight them anyway. Because dying for something matters more than living for nothing." He walked toward the exit. "Stay here if you want. Hide until they burn through the nebula and drag you away. But I am going to fight." He was almost at the door when Tavi's voice stopped him. "Wait." He turned. Tavi was standing in the center of the platform, and that ancient power was gathering around her again. Her eyes glowed with soft blue light. "The kindred have returned," she said. Her voice carried to every vein in the sanctuary. "And this one fights. The question is, do we remember how to fight beside him?" One by one, the vein rose from their seats. The resignation faded from their faces, replaced by something else. Something that had been buried for 10,000 years. Purpose. Elder Suho stepped forward, and for the first time, Dowan saw what the vein had once been, a being of terrible power, awakening from a long sleep. "We remember," the elder said. "Show us the way, kindred." The Dominion fleet began its attack at dawn. Not that dawn meant anything in space, but Admiral Yoon Hana liked the symbolism. A new day. A new era. The era when the Dominion would finally claim its prize. Massive cannons fired into the nebula, sending pulses of energy through the clouds. The radiation that protected the sanctuary was no defense against weapons designed to burn through stars. Inside the sanctuary, alarms screamed. The outer shields are failing, Jinho reported. They will breach the nebula in 30 minutes. Dowan stood at the center of the command room, surrounded by ancient beings who were rediscovering their power. The Ven moved differently now. Their weariness had lifted. Their eyes glowed with soft light. "What is the plan?" Elder Suho asked. "They expect you to surrender or hide," Dowan said. "They do not expect resistance. That is their weakness. We hit them fast, hit them hard, and make them regret coming here." "We cannot destroy an entire fleet," Mirren pointed out. "There are 37 of us. There are hundreds of ships. We do not need to destroy them. We need to make them afraid. Fear is the only thing that will make them retreat." Tubby nodded. "He is right. The Dominion knows the Vane have power, but they believe we have forgotten how to use it. We must remind them." The plan was simple because simple plans worked best. The Vane would board the flagship and take Admiral Yoon. Without their leader, without proof that the Vane could be captured, the fleet would have no purpose. 20 Ven would create the assault team. The rest would defend the sanctuary against any ships that breached the nebula, and Dowan would lead the boarding party. "This is insane," Jinho said. "You are one human. You cannot fight through a warship." "I do not have to fight through. I just have to fight. The Ven can handle the rest." Dowan checked his weapons. His pistol, a rifle he had found in the sanctuary's armory, and a knife strapped to his leg. Primitive tools compared to Ven power, but tools he understood. "I am the distraction. While they focus on me, your people do what needs to be done. You will die. Maybe, but I will die doing something that matters." The Vane assault team transported to the flagship using technology that folded space like paper. One moment they were in the sanctuary, the next they were in a dark corridor deep inside the enemy ship. Dowan felt his stomach twist from the transport, but he pushed through it. There was no time for weakness. "Move," he whispered. The group advanced through the ship. The Vane moved like ghosts, their abilities sensing every life form around them. Guards fell silently, their minds simply switched off. Doors opened without touching. Cameras saw nothing. But stealth could only last so long. They were halfway to the bridge when the alarm started. "Contact!" someone shouted over the ship's communication system. "Intruders on Deck 7. Soldiers poured into the corridor, dozens of them armored and armed with weapons designed to kill anything. They opened fire. Dowan moved. He had trained for years in combat. He had fought in the border war against enemies who wanted him dead. But he had never fought like this. Not with allies who could stop hearts with a thought. Not against enemies who had devoted their civilization to hunting these allies. He fired his rifle, taking down soldiers before they could aim. He rolled behind cover, using the corridor's architecture to shield himself. When his rifle ran empty, he drew his pistol. When that ran empty, he used the rifle as a club. The Vane fought beside him, but their power took time to use. They could not kill dozens at once without burning themselves out. So Dowan bought them time. He stood in the gap and held back the flood. A bullet hit his arm. Another grazed his leg. Pain screamed through his body, but he kept moving. He had felt worse. He had survived worse. "Keep going," he shouted to the Vane. "I will hold them here." "We cannot leave you," Tabi called back. "You can and you will. The mission matters more than me. Go." The Vane hesitated. In that moment, Dowan saw something change in their ancient eyes. They were seeing what he had told them about, the kindred spirit, the willingness to sacrifice for others. Tabi touched his mind just briefly, a moment of connection that said more than words ever could. Then she led the others toward the bridge, leaving Dowan alone against an army. He lasted longer than he should have. He lasted longer than any single human had a right to last. But eventually the numbers won. He fell to his knees, his weapons empty, his body bleeding from a dozen wounds. Soldiers surrounded him, their guns aimed at his head. "Do not kill him," a voice commanded. Admiral Yoon Hana walked through the soldiers like a queen through servants. She looked down at Dowan with cold amusement. "The cargo hauler who started all this. I must admit, you have impressed me." She crouched down to his level. "You are dying for monsters, you know. The Vane killed billions. They destroyed entire civilizations. They are not worth your sacrifice." "They were monsters," Dowan gasped. "Now they are trying to be something else. That is more than your dominion can say. Pretty words from a dead man. Admiral Yoon stood and drew her pistol. The Vane will be captured. Their power will belong to us, and you will be forgotten. A footnote in history, nothing more. She aimed at his head. The bridge doors exploded inward. Tavi stood in the opening, and she was no longer the small, fragile creature from the cantina. She blazed with power, her body surrounded by light that hurt to look at. Behind her, the other Vane emerged, equally transformed. Admiral Yoon spun, firing her pistol. The bullet stopped in midair, inches from Tavi's face. "You will not touch him," Tavi said. Her voice echoed with thousands of years of suppressed rage. The soldiers opened fire. Every bullet stopped. Every weapon jammed. Every soldier felt something ancient brush against their minds, filling them with primal terror. Some ran. Some fell unconscious. Some simply stood frozen, unable to move. Admiral Yoon backed away, real fear breaking through her composure. "This is impossible. The record said you had forgotten how to fight." "We remembered." Tavi advanced on her. "A human reminded us." The Admiral pulled a device from her belt. "One more step and I destroy this ship. Kill myself and everyone on it, including your precious kindred." "Do it," Dowan said from the floor. His voice was weak but certain. "If dying is the price, I will pay it." Admiral Yoon stared at him, at this broken, bleeding human who was willing to die to protect creatures he had known for days. She could not understand it. Her entire worldview had no space for such behavior. That hesitation cost her everything. Elder Suho appeared behind her, moving faster than something his age should move. One touch to her neck, and Admiral Yoon collapsed, unconscious but alive. Tavi rushed to Dowan's side. Her hands glowed as she poured healing energy into his shattered body. "You foolish, beautiful human," she whispered. "You almost died." "Did we win?" "Yes, we won." Dowan laughed, though it hurt to laugh. "Good. I would hate to die for nothing." The Dominion fleet retreated. Without Admiral Yoon, without their command structure, they had no choice. They had come to capture weak, hiding creatures. They had found something else entirely. The battle for the sanctuary became legend. It spread through the galaxy in whispers and rumors. The Vane had returned. They stood beside humanity, and they had destroyed an entire fleet without losing a single member. 1 week later, Dowan stood on the observation deck of the sanctuary, fully healed but still tired. The nebula swirled around them, beautiful and eternal. Tavi joined him. "The other Vane want you to stay," she said. "They say you have earned a place among us." "I am not Vane." "No. You are something better. You are the proof that we were right to hope, right to wait." She stood beside him, her shoulder barely reaching his elbow. "You changed us, Do-hwan, reminded us what we had forgotten." "I did not do anything special. I just did what felt right." "That is what makes it special." Tavi smiled, and it was a real smile, full of warmth and gratitude. The kindred never understood themselves either. Perhaps that was part of their power. They stood in silence, watching the stars. "What happens now?" Dewan asked. "Now we live. Not hiding, but truly living. The Ven will emerge from the shadows, slowly, carefully. We will protect those who need protecting. We will stand beside humanity as humanity stands beside us. Partners? Partners, kindred, as we were always meant to be." Dowan nodded. He thought about his cargo ship, his simple life, his attempts to avoid trouble. All of that seemed very far away now. "I suppose I cannot go back to hauling cargo." "You could, but I suspect you would be bored." He laughed. She was right. After everything he had seen, everything he had done, normal life would feel empty. "What do you suggest instead?" Tavi's eyes sparkled with ancient mischief. "The galaxy is vast and full of those who prey on the weak. Someone should protect them. Someone who fights when fighting is foolish. Someone who cares when caring is dangerous." "That sounds like a lot of trouble." "It does. Are you interested?" Dowan looked at the stars, at the vast universe waiting beyond the nebula. Somewhere out there, people needed help. Somewhere out there, someone was being hurt while others looked away. He had spent years running from the galaxy's cruelty. Maybe it was time to start running toward it. I am interested, he said, but I am going to need a better ship. Tavi laughed. It was a sound of pure joy, the first such sound the sanctuary had heard in 10,000 years. That can be arranged, kindred. That can certainly be arranged. In the depths of space, word spread. The vein had awakened. They walked beside humanity now, guided by a single human who had proven what their species could become. Other Van, hidden across the galaxy for millennia, heard the news and stirred from their long sleep. They felt hope for the first time in ages, and somewhere in the spaces between stars, the spirits of the ancient kindred smiled. Their legacy had found new carriers. Their sacrifice had meaning again. The universe was vast and dark and often cruel. But now something new moved through that darkness. Something that would fight for the weak, something that would never surrender, never compromise, never stop believing that compassion was worth dying for. The kindred had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same.